This is Ambition Today, a new podcast show hosted by me, Kevin Siskar, discussing what it means to achieve success, grow your startup, build your business, and achieve your dreams in the modern world. This is episode 1 of Ambition Today. With me today, I'm joined by Ramphis Castro, where we'll be discussing some of the tech news this week. In the news this week, Google changes its name, decides to be a whole new company. Zirtual shuts down overnight, 400 employees and thousands of customers left in the dark. And Buzzfeed gets invested in by NBC Universal. More about that on today's episode of Ambition Today.
Looking to make your dreams come true? Needing that extra push to become more successful? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar.
Welcome to Ambition Today, our latest podcast. With us today, we have Ramphis Castro, my co-director for the Founder Institute here in New York. Ramphis, do you have a few words?
Yes, hi. So, as Kevin mentioned, I run Founder Institute here in New York City with him. I'm the managing director for the program. And for those of you that don't know, Founder Institute is the world's largest idea stage accelerator. And the New York program is the only second city in the world that operates on a full-time basis.
Nice. All right, great. So this week we just want to cover some news. So in the news this week, let's open it up right away. So Zirtual completely shut down overnight. We've been following it. There's some new developments in it. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so one of the key things that I'm very interested about the story, other than the fact that it's a Founder Institute graduate from a while back, I believe from the Silicon Valley chapter, is that there was a news gap in between the announcement of the pause, the announcement of what happened, and then kind of everybody's reaction to it. So it was a very interesting take on how to manage community trust, how that is built, how is that potentially affected by miscommunications or gaps in communications. And it's very interesting to see. So basically what happened from what we saw from the outside.
Well, real quick. So sorry, just to jump back on. So Zirtual, for those of you that don't know, is a virtual assistant company. They were on This Week in Startups earlier this week. 400 full-time employees, not independent contractors, with an $11 million run rate. And I think about a year old since their beta. So go ahead.
Right. So Zirtual is a very well-known company in the virtual assistant space, basically leveraging technology and remote work from virtual assistants to provide those services to thousands of people, and able to provide flexibility to virtual assistants everywhere to just basically be able to work from home and support their lifestyle and enable their growth. So what we saw, again, was we saw an announcement, kind of one-sided announcement from Zirtual that they were pausing. TechCrunch picked up the story.
And they went completely dark. Their Twitter shut down, their website shut down.
Their assistants didn't know what was going on. Right, literally, they noticed because they logged on in the morning, and they couldn't be able to log into the system. So no notice, nothing. Right, just literally went dark from one day to the next, and that was the primary piece that really captured the attention of let's say the technology industry for that amount of time, is just going dark. Kind of essentially what seems from the outside a very successful company that started out as a dream company of the founder, and just see it go dark without no explanation.
Right. So I read late last night. So the founder, Maren Kate, actually posted on Medium that so what happened was they had an external CFO who they kind of were offhand, laissez-faire, hands off with, and just the burn rate got out of control. They had hired people, 400 people, and they burned out of cash. The reason for the late notice is supposedly that they ran, they were up until the last minute trying to raise investment, save the company. So is that the right thing to do? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So
was it handled right?
Sure. So for those of you that don't know, the burn rate is money going out the door. So let's say you have $100, you're making $100 in the bank. You're making $100. And $150 goes out, then your burn rate is $50 right a month. So one of the key metrics for startups is to keep a very close eye on what your burn is, because it basically tells you how much time, the other word being runway, how much time you have before you run out of money. And that is the key thing that keeps our CEOs up at night, is making sure that you don't run out of money. And generally my take is keeping close eye on burn and managing growth is very difficult, and for a lot of non-obvious reasons, many of which are managing your customers of cost of customer acquisition and managing multiple channels where you're trying to understand how much it's costing you, but then also running different experiments to continue to trick that growth as you're adding on more employees or more support so that you're able to deliver the services that you're committed to. So you have these two forces pulling on each other,
right,
where there's money going out the door on your channel side and money going out the door on the organization side. And you're also tweaking money coming in on your revenue model side, as you're also managing fundraising so making sure that as you're hitting your metrics and your growth trajectories, that you're continuing to have cash, right? So you have a lot of these things playing out at the same time. Extremely difficult to balance out, predict effectively which ones of those experiments are going to win. When are you scaling at the right time? Are you bringing in the right people at the right time to deliver the services? Are you actually projecting your growth and in the right way?
And having this all outsourced doesn't help.
Definitely having a piece of that puzzle, which is basically keeping track of what the numbers are and what they mean for your company, is generally not the best scenario, right? Whoever is your either in-house, outsourced CFO is somebody that has to be a very close part of your team, very close to your model, understand your customer and where you are and where you want to go very, very clearly, so that they're able to add input to the CEO, obviously, right, and the board, and inform the board and the CEO on where they see things going moving forward. And that's just very difficult to manage if they're not necessarily an active, significant part of your team, especially in the growth stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with that. That's definitely something that you need to keep a part of your team, and keep core. And that's your job as the CEO is to keep a monitor on that.
One of the key things that is helpful that didn't exist when either I was with my companies and a lot of other investors and entrepreneurs kind of did their thing is to compare yourself, right? It's very hard to know if you're scaling too early. It's one of the hardest things from CEO to figure out. But now there's something called the Startup Compass. Startup Compass, now kind of renamed Compass, is a company that publishes the global rankings for ecosystems and technology. It recently released their research on what are the rankings of ecosystems around the world, where New York is now number 2. And one of the things that they do and provide a lot of value for founders is you can plug in your data, your employees, your funding, your salaries, and all the data, what's your industry, and a lot of other data. And it can tell you, are you scaling too early? And based on comparisons for similar companies in your industry, which is obviously very helpful in terms of keeping an eye on those metrics and comparables over time as well. Because these things change as a lot of different trends around the world change, cost of living, inflation. There's just a lot of other factors that are not obvious, and not even the best CEOs or the best investors with kind of the experience that we've seen on portfolio companies and all these different things are able to know exactly and very precisely. They're very good rule of thumbs that we can use based on our experience. Fred Wisdom has an excellent post on burn, and Mark Schuster has talked about this. So there's a lot of coverage now on burn, especially within the context of
there's definitely more resources,
markets.
Definitely more resources out there than there used to be a few years ago. So the silver lining in all this turns out to be that after the shutdown, they actually got acquired by Startups.co late yesterday, and the service will resume on Monday.
So that's a key. That's a great thing to actually highlight. Is the founder's ability to, through their own resources and their network, to be able to do right by everybody that's committed to them. And I think it was a little bit, everybody jumped the gun. I think that was unfair on the gaps in communications that maybe.
So was it right to wait till the last minute and then just go dark, or what? Or should there have been more transparency between the CEO and her employees and the company internally?
That's for the CEO to find out, right? Like from the outside looking in, it's easy to say,
Yeah,
right? But it's really one of those, the hard thing about hard things, right? That is kind of generally talked about is there's no right answer. It really depends a lot on the culture that you're building, how you want to be. I mean, my general preference is for transparency for everybody involved, especially at the early stages. You want everybody on board, everybody committed to understand what's happening. Everybody that has started and failed or started a company, high growth company, knows what it feels like to miss payroll. It's a gut-wrenching feeling, knowing that it's coming, that it's looming, and it's really you're doing exactly like she did, everything, burning the candle on both ends, doing everything you can until the very last minute until it happens.
Right.
So it's just something that it's very difficult, very difficult situation. So general recommendation is definitely transparency when you can. And the other is exactly what she did, is just come clean. Like, this is what I was doing. This is where we thought we were. And just some things just don't go the way you think. And that's just not necessarily anybody's fault. And that's why I think she did an amazing job at actually explaining what happened, how it happened, and then negotiating an outcome that did right by the employees specifically, and hopefully for her as well, as she kind of moves on to do what she's going to do next.
All right, great. All right, well, we'll take a quick break. We got to pay the bills, and then we'll be right back.
This is Ambition Today with Kevin Sisker. We'll be right back.
All right, great. And a little bit redundant here, but our first sponsor today is the Founder Institute. Ramphis and I are the co-directors for New York. As we've mentioned previously, this is the first full-time city for the Founder Institute here in New York. And Ramphis, I just want to ask you, so why would you recommend the Founder Institute to someone?
The Founder Institute, as the largest idea stage program in the world, is the best way to figure out if you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur and whether there's a market for your idea while you keep your full-time job. So it's the best way to have access to the best mentors in the city, build out your network with other founders and investors and mentors while you work full-time on your regular work as you're working with the idea.
Great. And I completely agree. I'm actually a grad myself, and so I feel very indebted to the program and what it taught me over the years. So thank you. You can check it out, fi.co. If you're interested, you can go to fi.co/apply and be sure to check out the New York chapter.
You're listening to Ambition Today. Visit us now at siskar.co.
Great, and we're back. So, also in the news this week, I wanted to talk about Google rebranding itself as Alphabet. It sounds like Larry wanted to take a step down, wanted to figure out a way that he could somehow promote himself in the process, and decided to demote all of Google to a subsidiary of this new company, Alphabet. It sounds genius. So what are your thoughts? My first concerns were that there'd be some sort of like monopoly antitrust issue because now there's this big portfolio company, but I know you have some views on that. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first thing, it's definitely brilliant to push the envelope on corporate organization, right? And how to optimize for innovation. And myself as an engineer first, but also an attorney and kind of legal geek on the corporate side, is something definitely that is very interesting how that plays out and how it's viewed by public investors, a public company, right? I'm not familiar with many that have attempted to do it in that way. I guess a company that comes to mind, kind of Berkshire Hathaway, of being in a big holding company and having a lot of very independent companies. They fit into the matrix. So we've seen that the model works before. I'm not sure we've seen it as aggressively marketed, especially with such an amazingly large public company as Google.
Right. And companies that are taking complete moonshots. I know they briefly mentioned on their blog post Life Sciences, which I'm pretty sure the mission of that company is to extend the lifespan of people by 20 to 30 years. So staying part of Google is YouTube, the search business, stuff like that. So what I mean, is this a smart move in your opinion? Or?
I think it's a absolutely brilliant move, and there's a lot of reasons why. One, it definitely empowers at the individual company level for more creative ways to incentivize the employees and attract talent to share the upside for that particular project. Right, so it's more streamlined, straightforward way to experiment with that and give more autonomy, right, and power to individuals within a particular company, making them CEOs, building their own teams, and all these different things. Then from the another perspective, which you were saying on the antitrust side, is you've already jumped the gun on the Department of Justice on what you're doing, right? Instead of having one monolithic company building and interacting with each other within different departments, that might raise some questions. So you
think this is actually getting a jump on any antitrust concerns and is a preemptive smart move by Google?
Yes, I definitely think so. It allows them to experiment in a more compartmentalized way, do experiments, place bigger bets in particular areas, and have those may fail, which a lot of those will, and not necessarily have that spill over into the other spaces. So be more like General Electric, right? So GE extensively innovates in that way. They operate essentially independently, and they implement a lot of customer discovery and lean startup methodologies into their innovation process now. So they're able to place very large bets, right? So the way, instead of a smaller company investing $1 million, $2 million in some experiment, Google can now spend a lot more and do it in the more GE way, where they could potentially test out something like Google X moonshots around sharing the internet, and then see if it works in a local program, and then just really double down on that bet from the parent company to sharing, kind of accessing those resources.
Yeah, and I think it kind of fits their culture as well, because I mean they're kind of already doing this. Tony Fadell is still running Nest as CEO. They already have subsidiary companies that are fully operating in that way. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
Definitely, also from the branding side, it's also a very interesting experiment where, in the mind of people, all these different Google products are not necessarily tied into the minds of them, like Nest, right? Nest as a company, and other companies that are in the portfolio. This just gives them more autonomy to kind of build those brands around, and maybe in some way leverage other Alphabet assets for that, but they can just sort of continue to grow that independently and experiment with that as well.
Okay, and then I know this is actually against some. So at the Founder Institute, we always teach people to have your .com locked up before you buy or create the company. So it turns out BMW owns Alphabet.com. It's Google. Do they need it? I mean,
well, I mean, when you own the search engine that people use to find you, it's just
that's a great point,
right? But definitely there's a very recent Paul Graham article, actually now in August, that was saying, same thing where you're supposed to change your name if you don't have the .com, and his data is that basically 100% of their top 20 companies own their .com. So it's an interesting sort of counterpoint on should you own it and why. But my take is it really doesn't matter, especially for Google. Wherein Google can say when people search for Google, Alphabet will come up.
Right. Yeah. They own the medium.
They own the medium, right? So it's things that they can control. So it doesn't affect them as much as maybe other companies, but definitely too early to know how that will play out.
All right, cool. And then lastly in the news, NBC invests $200 million in Buzzfeed, valuing Buzzfeed at $1.5 billion. So, I mean, this is a company that started as almost meme-y, if that's a word. It just clickbait, lots of addictive stories. Is this like Huffington Post 2.0, where you just have random users creating these stories and then an editorial team just servicing them and driving tons of clicks and revenue, or what are your? Yeah, so is this a smart move by NBC?
Well, it's a very, very smart move. So it's great to have to finally see some of the big corporates. There's a lot of corporate VC action, and there's also a lot of M&A activity. But on the corporate VC side, having many of the larger public companies dedicating more of their funds into investing in earlier stage innovation, which is very, very hard to pull off in large public companies. It's sort of essentially a very well-known challenge that all of them are facing. Just to see that trend in a more public way from a more longer established company actually push out the idea that the kind of startups time has come, right? Where the big companies just accepted that it is very wise for them to invest in the mediums and the companies that will disrupt them moving forward. Clayton Christensen, Harvard professor on disruptive innovation, talked extensively, published extensively about the topic. So having that be something that big public companies are thinking about and executing on, it's good news for the industry overall. On your comments on the BuzzFeed specifically, it's not a Huffington Post model, right? They're very, very data-driven organization in the way they assess what content they generate, how they generate that content, and how they engage with their users, how that's spread. So they are probably have the biggest expertise in the world right now in how content spreads through this new medium, quote unquote, the internet and all of the different platforms around that. So they are best positioned to actually leverage the NBC platform and not the other way around, where NBC leverages BuzzFeed, but actually BuzzFeed leveraging the NBC platform for continued growth.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a good point there, is that the dinosaurs investing in the next generation of startups, because coming from advertising myself, there's definitely some stoutness there, and it takes a while to move things forward. BuzzFeed's really been pushing the native advertising model, and sponsored posts. There's all sorts of things changing right now, viewability, and I think this will do a good job of pushing all that forward and driving innovation in the advertising ad tech industry.
Definitely, and a key piece that is not as talked about is that it is a New York company, and obviously New York is the lead for media and ad tech in the world. So actually having a New York company receive the strategic investment from NBC also talks to the sophistication of the New York ecosystem, right? Where big companies that are natively headquartered in New York, and new startups that are natively headquartered in New York are going for very sophisticated kind of deals in terms of how they work together moving forward.
All right, great. So I guess lastly, thank you. I think this has been a great first episode of Ambition Today. I'm excited to kick it off, and thank you.
Thanks for having us, Kevin.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit www.siskar.co. We'll catch you next time.